From BB&T Field in Winston-Salem, this is Tar Heel Illustrated publisher Andrew Jones along with staff writer Jacob Turner, and we just finished post-game interviews. North Carolina falls to Wake Forest 24-18. There, again, people are going to think we're redundant. A lot of storylines because the Tar Heels were atrocious in the first half. It looked like last year. In fact, I believe Aaron Crawford said it felt like last year for a while, but then they got it going, and lo and behold, they have the ball. When the game ends, with a chance to maybe pull out a miracle win. Michael Carter goes out of bounds. Mack Brown said one of the officials said there was a second on the clock, but the officials took the game off the field. That was it. Carolina didn't get a chance to run and play. It would have been a Hail Mary type thing. It would have been a miracle type win if they would have pulled it off. But the fact that they were in position to win the game is a huge storyline. That's one of them. Another one is how horrible they were in the first half at the line of scrimmage, especially the offensive line. And the other one is that they need to learn how to handle success. If you saw my 5 for Friday
That's a tough one to
video,
get out. That's a tough one to get out.
Especially right now.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, this is a heck of a game to cover. If you saw that earlier Friday, my whole point of it was handling success, approaching the game. Do you get through the week not thinking you're more than you really are and recognizing who you are? I think the Tar Heels had some trouble with that. Some of them admitted they had some trouble with that. Your number one storyline. To me, that's it. That'll be in my column. What's yours?
Just so many, really. I think for me it was, injuries were a big problem in the first half. We got four senior starters alone missing going into the game, and Tucker, Polino, Renee, and Strobridge. So that's a big deal.
Antoine Green,
and
who's
Antoine
been
Green
started.
as well.
That's 5 starters. That guys that started last Saturday night were not here tonight.
Yeah, 4 of those guys being seniors. I think that I'm not going to sit here and blame it all on injuries, but this Carolina team doesn't have a lot of starters that are seniors anyway, and you're missing 4 of them, and 4 of your biggest players. I think the other thing for me was it was really a tale of two halves for Sam Howell in this offense. You mentioned how bad they were in the offense. I tweeted it about 10 minutes after the game ended. I said, I think what this really came down to is Carolina, they dug themselves in way too big of a hole in the first half and just weren't able to come back in the long run. Left it a little bit too late. Like you mentioned, still had a chance, almost had a chance to really at least throw a Hail Mary and see what happens. It didn't happen. But it was a tale of two halves. Sam Howell said it in his post-game interview. He said, I played like a true freshman tonight in the first half. And that's basically what he said. And I can't count. I would say it's close to 10 times. He said, he just kept repeating it. He said, it was on me. I got to play better next time. He said that about 10 times.
Well,
I know we kind of expected that coming into it. I kind of expected Howell to say something like that with just knowing the type of guy he is. But, I mean, his first half performance was not good. UNC as a whole on both sides of the ball in the first half were not good. But, I mean, I can't sit here and say Sam Howell's the reason they lost this game. I think there's a lot of different factors that went into it.
And pardon me for wiping my face a lot. A lot of sweat
it's hot out
down
here
to get to this. That's the budding professional in Sam. Take it on himself.
Exactly.
But you know what? He didn't have time to go through his progressions.
No.
There were a couple times he missed open receivers because by the 3rd or 4th possession, everything was happening so fast. He was looking for it to happen even faster.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get a beat down. So they took him out for 2 series, put in Reuter. Reuter showed his legs on that 22-yard run, gave Sam a chance to sort of exhale, watch the game from the sideline, take in the speed there, sort of hit a reset button, and he came out and started the second half. More the same the first 2 possessions, although one of his incompletes, he did have some time. And then they started getting it going. An interception by Miles Dorn kind of gave the team a little bit of a lift, saying, hey, you know what? We're actually still in this game. And they got the field goal, and they just clawed back. And then they had a bunch of big plays in the 4th quarter. Michael Carter came up big that quarter, had a couple of huge plays. And Sam was directing the offense. He was going through his progression. He was finding guys. So, you know, if you're a Carolina fan, I think what you can take from this is, A, the team didn't quit. The team kept fighting and made Wake have to kick a field goal late to force Carolina to score a touchdown. I think maybe the play calling is a little different. You never know how things work out. The other thing is Sam regrouped and found himself. So one of the things we talked about in August and early September is Sam can correct a lot of his own mistakes. He's like a self-adjusting kind of guy. And we saw him do that, obviously, with the aid of the staff. I'm sure Philip Longo had a long talk with him when he was sitting out those 2 possessions, when he had opportunities to talk to him, obviously. And there was a lot learned, and certainly in halftime, I'm sure a lot of those words were there too. Sam learned, the offense learned, the big play guys stepped up and started making some big plays. And then on defense, they figured out that delayed RPO, that slow developing RPO that Wake runs that I don't see anybody else run like that.
No.
Jeremiah Gimmel said during the week, that's a challenge. We have to be disciplined. I don't think they were very disciplined early. Not having Jason Strobridge up front, they had a little issue with that other tackle spot because Crawford and Strobridge, that's a heck of a tandem. You only had one part of that tonight. I think that was part of the adjustment as well. So defensively, they only gave up 24 points. And for all the things didn't go right, only 24 points. Last week, for all the things didn't go right defensively because they gave up a lot of yards and stuff, 25 points. So this team has shown us they know how to get up the field. They know how to make a play here or there. They just got to make more of them because after App State, it gets as tough as it gets. And the rest of the schedule still are going to be a lot of games like this, a lot of teams like Wake, that they're going to probably be in games in the fourth quarter. And the limiting some of the things that you do wrong early in the game might put you in a better position in the fourth quarter. These are the things these guys have to learn. I think tonight was a big lesson in that respect.
Yeah, Mac Brown talked about it during the week about managing success. I mean, Carolina was sitting at 2-0, big 2 fourth-quarter comebacks in the first 2 games of the season. And then they come in and they play flat. I know Michael Carter said it in the post-game interview, which you can check out on the same YouTube channel you're watching this on. But he basically said, we just didn't come ready to play in the first half. We weren't focused. We weren't locked in. I think Mac Brown phrased it like, you have to create your own energy on the road.
Yeah.
And Carolina just didn't do that. I think, like I mentioned, I think that's my biggest takeaway from today's game is first half, true road game. You got to play better than that. You got to weather the storm a little bit. And it wasn't like this crowd. I mean, it was a packed stadium, but it wasn't like this was I mean, for your first road game, you can't ask for much than coming to it.
It's the smallest Power 5 stadium in America.
You can't ask for a better first true road game, non-conference game too, which is weird.
And we're on the visiting side right now, looking into the stands, and it was 3/4 Carolina fans.
Oh man, this side was unbelievable for Carolina.
I just think learning, new money. People with new money, they go out and spend like crazy.
Yeah.
They don't have a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
I think this is kind of new money in a sense with this team where they got to learn how to win and they got to learn how to be successful, and handle success, and learn how to prepare, knowing that you're not as good as you think you're not as good as 2-0 says, because they were so close to losing those 2 games as well. They could have very easily lost those 2 games. But you're not as bad as 0-2 would have said if they would have lost those 2 games. They're kind of like right there in the middle, and they got to move forward and work out the things that didn't go well. And they do have some issues now. We said it a bunch of times, this team cannot afford injuries, and they can especially afford injuries to seniors. Strobridge, senior. Polino, senior. Renee, senior. Carl Tucker, senior. They weren't there. They need these guys. These are the lead. Polino's the leader of the offensive line. Tucker's one of the more vocal guys on offense. Strobridge is a vocal guy on defense, and just that tandem, like I said, with Aaron Crawford. Renee's a vocal. We've talked about that a lot. Very vocal guy in the secondary. So they had some obstacles, but you got to overcome that.
You did.
And you got to come to Winston-Salem, and you got to pick up a win, or at least don't start out spotting them 304 yards in the first half to your own 71. That was bad.
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, Safe Surratt, career high, I think 169 yards on the day for him. And I mean, there was a couple plays where he just went up and got the ball over Trey Morrison. It's probably a little different storyline if you have Patrice Renee, because he's a taller cornerback, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more experience, a lot more experience at the position. So that was something they didn't do well stopping. They slowed him down in the second half. Like I said, I can't remember the exact number. Well, I want to say Wake ended with around 150, 160 yards in the second half, something around there. So Carolina's defense adjusted very well, forced the turnover, brought the turnover belt back out, which I mentioned as being one of my keys to the game in the thread before. But it just left it too little too late. It reminded me of the Miami game in ways, but on the other side of the ball. Miami gets behind 17-3 last week, gets back in the game, but the reason they lose is because you can't go behind 17-3 on the road. Carolina goes behind here 21-0, plays better in the second half, but when you dig yourself in that big of a hole, it's just super hard to come back from.
I covered the game in 2015 when they were down 21-0 at Georgia Tech, which is the biggest comeback victory in school history. I said that.
Yeah, in the
I went back and looked at some of that game during one of the timeouts, and the difference is Sam's a true freshman. It's his 3rd game. That team had Marquise.
Yeah,
Marquise was amazing that day. That was one of those. Marquise lifted them to a victory because they all kind of rode his emotion and his grit. The defense made the plays. They had playmakers on offense there, experienced guys they don't have now yet. They had some guys even on defense that had been around, and they were more fortified because they didn't have the injuries. This group hit by injuries. They were hurting with that tonight. Jeremiah Gimmel, I think, and we're going to close here in a second, Jeremiah Gimmel kind of summed it up to me. I asked him when he explained how they didn't approach the game the right way. they maybe thought they were better than they were, and then talking about the things they did well in the second half to give themselves a position to maybe win the game. I said, well, what do you build on? What do you take with you? What are those two things? He said, absolutely the first thing. We know we're good. We just have to understand how to be good and consistently be good, and it was that approach. So if that's it, if it's all up here, this staff is going to be on them about that, and Mac may do one of those, hey, see, I told you so kind of deals, and they'll learn, and it shouldn't happen again. And if that's the lesson they learned from this, they'll be a better football team next week.
That's a good point because, sometimes losses, especially early in the season when you're kind of on a little bit of a high, 2 fourth-quarter comebacks to start the year, 2 big wins, and then you get this loss, and it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth, and it says, okay, maybe we're not as good. Maybe we're not quite as good as we think we are. I don't know if it was a mixture of Carolina coming in here and being too confident. Maybe that's why they didn't show up in the first half. I don't know if it was just not being sure how to handle success. A team that first road game, different environment, just not really knowing how to adapt to it. But whatever it was, Carolina did not do a good enough job in the first half, did not do a good enough job early on either side of the ball. But it's a guy's drop by right here cleaning up the field, but you gotta love it. But when it comes down to it, you mentioned it, the first 2 minutes of the video, Carolina had a chance to win this game late. And I think that's something positive you can take away from this team. And like you mentioned, if the only thing that Carolina needs to work on is just be more focused coming to these games and trying to understand how to win and handle success, I don't have any...
They have a lot to work on.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think I have the ultimate trust in this staff to at least get that figured out going into the next game. And it's good that they're playing Appalachian State. No disrespect to Appalachian State. It's going to be a tough game. Yeah. But if they're going into Clemson next week, we're having a lot different conversation right now.
They have a lot to work on. But if they got to get understanding who they are.
They're still trying to find an identity.
To more, to be able to fix the things that they need to fix. Yeah. If I think that I'm like the skinny and in shape like I was in my early 20s, and I go on the beach and just wear a bathing suit, take my shirt off, people are going to scream because that's not who I am. Right? So I got to know who I am. I got to keep the shirt on. Tar Heels got to know who they are. Yeah. They're a team that gave up 488 yards to Miami. They're a team that gave up a crap load of yards tonight to Wake Forest, especially in the first half. Oh, yeah. They're a team that couldn't block, has not run block well at all the last 2 weeks with Polino and without Polino. So it's more than just the center situation. So there's a lot of things to fix, but if you get that first issue taken care of, it's a lot easier to fix that stuff, and they will more quickly become the team that they can become.
Yeah, then they're still searching for an identity. Make no mistakes about it. I think starting off 2-0 this season was great for them, but it maybe gave some people some false hope that, what can this team do? Can this team go on and be 4-0 going into the Clemson game?
We did it, just played it because we do that. Media, we're constantly projecting ahead. Yeah. And college football tells us we have to do that because of the way that it's set up now.
Exactly.
And I'm sure they did the same thing. Now they're 2-1. They got to beat a good App State team that's going to come in next week that has experience, really good players. Darrington Evans is a pro. We'll get into that later in the week. And they can't think about Clemson. No. They got to take care of business. Otherwise, Clemson 2-2, when Clemson comes into town, that's a big downer. They should be 3-1. They should learn that lesson and win that game next week. We'll deal with that more later on in the week. Closing words, basically, I think there's a lot for this team to learn. This team has so much room to improve. Every element of this team can get better, but like I said, and I know I'm being redundant here, they've got to have the right frame of mind to get better in order to get better at the rate this staff can help them improve.
I think the biggest takeaway I'm taking from tonight is this team is searching for an identity. They're still trying to figure out who they are. Yeah. They did some really good things in the first 2 games. Tonight came back down to earth a little bit, but you don't hit the panic button now. It's a non-conference game, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard playing Wake Forest in a non-conference game, but it doesn't hurt them in the ACC. They're still 1-0 in the ACC. Still a lot to play for. They go back home, two games in a row at home, and we'll see how things shake out next weekend.
He's Jacob Turner. I'm Andrew Jones. This is TarHeelIllustrated.com. If you're checking us out on YouTube, go to our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com. A ton of great stuff going on, including a really neat special I know all UNC fans would love to get a part of. From BB&T Field, it's not stadium, it's field. By the way, some old guys were saying Grove Stadium still. I think that's what it used to be.
I was wondering, I was like, this is a stadium name.
Yeah, named after Toe Groves. Yeah. Anyway, Wake Forest 24, North Carolina 18. Thank you.